Mr. Fairweather? Mr. Fairweather? Can you talk about what happened?
Yes. Well, initially he seemed nice, very nice. And the idea seemed great, foolproof in fact. And he was just such a nice guy. You know, the type that you trust immediately.
And can you tell us a little about his idea? Mr. Fairweather?
You know, I really have nothing to say.
I'd like to ask you about the money that you wrote to your investors.
I met him at an expat business connections function here in Beijing. It was a business networking event, really. I guess we all should have been more wary about being labeled wealthy here and what attention that might bring. Anyway, he told me he was involved in a construction project in connection with guys high up in the Chinese government and that we'd make a fortune if we invested. He just seemed so trustworthy, like an old friend.
How much did you invest?
I put in $25,000.
And how much did you expect to make from that?
He said I'd double my money in a year.
How much did you make?
I lost everything.
Mr. Fairweather, we'd like to ask you about the money that you wrote to some investors. And also, a missing person. Mr. Fairweather, can we speak to you? We have some questions to ask you about some money owed to some investors and also for a missing person that we believe you were the last person to see. Mr. Fairweather, I think you owe us a few answers.
I'm really very busy at the moment.
Mr. Fairweather, I think you owe a few people some answers, Mr. Fairweather.
So, there was a contract drawn up by a Chinese lawyer that Fairweather provided, and everything seemed fine for a while. Then it turned sour. Very sour.
Sour? How?
He stopped answering calls, returning emails. He got very aggressive, telling us investment is a risky business. We had a couple of investor meetings with him, and he was very hard-faced, and he was flanked by these two mean-looking Chinese men covered in tattoos. It was very intimidating.
Can you tell us something about Sarah?
Sarah was a lovely woman, a real American belle, and from a very wealthy family. She'd inherited a fortune. Everybody loved Sarah. She also put money into Fairweather's idea.
Do you know how much?
No, but a lot, I think. And she may have been involved in other ways, too.
What other ways?
Well, there were rumors about a romantic relationship between her and Fairweather, about him making her a partner in his business. She seemed completely mesmerized by him, totally taken in. I guess we all were for a while.
Can you tell us about the disappearance of Sarah?
The last thing she told us was that we shouldn't worry, that Fairweather was a real gentleman and he'd look after us. She was enthralled by him, but by that time I could see him for what he was. He's a jackal. He preys on people. She got into a limousine with two of his heavies later that day, and that was the last we saw of her. She just vanished.
You've had no contact since?
No, not here. Not her family in the States either, so far as I know. She just disappeared.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us, Mr. Fairweather.
That's fine. I just wanted to to have a chance to answer these spurious claims that people may be making against me.
There are two claims we'd like to put to you, Mr. Fairweather. The first is that you took money from a number of wealthy expatriates living in Beijing for a building project, and they saw nothing from it. What happened to their money, Mr. Fairweather?
Well, you see, I acted as a broker in an investment deal that was drawn up by a legitimate Chinese lawyer. That deal involved several foreign investors,
from the expat community and a Chinese property developer. And I helped them make this connection, a business connection, but I didn't act in an advisory role, and nor did I invest myself. I was actually just doing them a favour.
Well, according to the investors, this was your plan. You told them it was foolproof. You organised a lawyer, and you ultimately took their money.
Well, look, let's make it quite clear. These people knew this was a business investment, and business investments can be risky. I didn't advise them to invest in it. On the contrary, I was very clear to point out the dangers of investing. I advise caution, in fact.
Okay, well, the other question I'd like to ask you is what happened to Sarah? She was last seen going to meet you, and she hasn't been heard from since.
Well, I mean, yeah, Sarah was Sarah was a lovely girl. She was a clever girl. She was intelligent, but she was, she was a big girl. She could look after herself. She wasn't an idiot, and she knew the risks.
Were you and Sarah in a relationship?
I mean, perhaps we were, but I don't see the relevance. I mean, it's a private matter.
Sarah's friends and relatives in the US haven't heard anything from her. Do you know where Sarah is?
I really don't think you need to worry about Sarah. Anyway, I think that's it. I'm finished.
like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so